We are live. We're live. We're live. We're live. Welcome to another edition of Culture and Code, October 28th. You know what to say. LA is not a bad place to be living in the middle of a pandemic. I'm really excited about the Angelinos out there. The Dodgers won the World Series last night. Lakers, of course, won the championship. And yes, it's a very, very weird year. Things are very odd, but shout out to LA. Great place to live right now in the middle of a crazy time. And definitely the LA Dodgers winning the World Series definitely made life a little sweeter. And so shout out to my city, my new city. LA is not where I've lived for about 20 years, but really, really proud of this city and love what's going on in this community. Upfront Ventures, one of LA's premier VC firms. They are known for, Mark Suster, who's their sort of I guess Mark Suster would be the city's elder statesman of venture capital in Los Angeles. Really excited that in other LA news, we have our first women promoted to a senior leadership role, really, at a venture capital firm with Kara Nortman, who becomes a co-managing partner at Upfront Ventures. And so LA's on fire this week. LA is on fire. Welcome to the Culture and Code show. This week we have a special guest. She'll be joining shortly. Her name is Ana Andjelic. Stay tuned. She is incredible. She is an amazing mind. She's joining us today to talk about brands, aspiration. She is her Business of Sociology Substack is probably one of my favorite reads. And she's going to be joining us in the next 20 minutes, talking about her book, The Business of Aspiration. She works a lot with CMOs, analysts on brands and talking about the future of brands. So really, really excited that you'll get to hear from her. But Los Angeles, man, we did it. Living in LA, I always used to say, is like living in the future. I used to say that. I don't even know what the future looks like anymore because next week we have an election. In case you've been living under a rock, it's the most important election I think we've seen in a long time. If you're not voting, you're weird and you're lame and you're not my people. Get out there and vote. Get out there and vote. And just so important. And even not just for the President of the United States. Down ballot, down ballot, down ballot. So I recently, started to build out the Authenticated from just, this WhatsApp group and this Mighty Network community. We started to really put some frame around our community. And one of the things that's been really fascinating is this idea of audio and the power of the voice around communities. A lot of you, some of you know that we've been doing a lot in a platform called Clubhouse. And it's been a fascinating exploration into the power of the voice. Really simple, right? just the voice and community and what that can do. There's been a couple of other startups that have launched around this concept of the voice. And so, I see it as a trend. I see it, voice, sort of voice only, and the business of the voice. I mean, if you think about even, um, Alexa, and voice activated stuff, like it's just interesting. Voice and audio, I think, are in an interesting space and place right now. And so we're certainly doing a lot of thinking about voice, and thinking about the simplicity of building community around voice. Um, there is a platform, as I mentioned, called Locker Room that is about sports voices. Um, and, we've seen the rise of podcast shows. So we're certainly paying attention to it at The Authenticated. We have some, developments in what we're building out that I think will be exciting. And certainly Clubhouse has been, just taken off. It's sort of the place to be, I guess, these days. So all of that to me is a culture signal that says that, portable audio, simplicity, community, is a wave. And video is great. I enjoy doing this. This is great. But there's something really interesting when you're just left with the voice and the power of the voice. And so, I'm super excited about some of the stuff that we have underway there at The Authenticated. I also, one of our members is a woman named Ilwad Elman. Ilwad Elman, if you don't know her work, you should. Ilwad is an activist from Somalia, Mogadishu. And Ilwad just won the German Africa Prize yesterday. She also is a Nobel Prize nominee. She's all of 30 years old. And she has really been working in the area of youth and how youth are involved in armed conflict and in conflict nations. And highly recommend that you go check her out on Instagram. Her name is Ilwad Elman, Ilwad. Last name is Elman, Elman. Check her out. She is incredible. And yesterday she won the German Africa Prize. And she continues to be celebrated for her work as a young African on the continent. And so we're just really proud of her. Speaking of Africa, had a really good meeting with a venture capitalist from Ghana. And I'm just I'm just enamored. I think I'm going to be attending virtually a conference in Ghana in December. Really excited about that. Just love all of the stuff that's happening on the continent as it relates to emerging entrepreneurs, new venture capitalists that are popping up on the continent. Africa is definitely a place that we pay attention to in The Authenticated. We have a lot of members of The Authenticated from the continent. And we just have some big plans for what we want to do in Africa, and I'm just really excited. I can't wait. I feel like I've been talking about Africa for a while, and I feel like the time is now. The time is now to take our investments, take our opportunities, take some of the things that we think are emerging, even in the West, in the States, and start to partner with folks on the continent. So yes, as Jessica Kara Moore says, Ghana is home. Ghana and the continent definitely is home for us, and we feel very blessed to have an incredible network there. And so we're going to be doing a lot more with some folks there, and be bringing them on the show. You're going to hear from some incredible people It's going to be great. We also have been just did an interview this week in Dubai on what is the name of the show? I can't remember the name of the show I did, but I can't. Great guy, Steven. Excited about what's happening in Dubai. Of course, Dubai and Israel now have an open trading agreement. There's a lot going on between, the future of UAE and Israel. We have a number of entrepreneurs in both UAE and Israel. But yeah, I did this show this week in Dubai. Dubai is a place I've spent, fair amount of time. I have a good network there, and many of our members are from Dubai. Sorry, Instagram people. My phone just fell. If you're on Instagram, you guys should really come on over to watch us on Twitch. So really excited about the energy coming out of the UAE. It was really great to connect there. Excited about what's going on in South America. We did a dinner last week in Uruguay with a founder of an artist colony kind of retreat. This woman whose name is Heidi Lender purchased a bunch of land in Uruguay, and we hosted a virtual dinner with her network of funders and folks that come from Brazil, that come from Argentina. That was really special last week. So yeah, I feel like I've been around the world. I went to Dubai yesterday. I was in Uruguay last week. All of from the living room in LA. We've been doing a lot of global stuff. And speaking of global, coming up in the next 5 or 10 minutes is Ana Andjelic. She is originally from Poland, lives in the States now, and is probably one of my favorite bloggers, I don't know what to call her, voices, leaders. She does it all. Her Substack blog, The Sociology of Business, is one of my favorites. And I'm excited for you guys to hear from her. She'll be joining soon. We always have great guests on the show. So yeah, back to the other markets and the other parts of the world that we're spending time in. So I'm really bullish on South America as well. I definitely want to grow our base in South America. Colombia is a place that we were set to go do another Culture and Code event. For those of you that don't know anything about me, this is the first time that you maybe have joined and tuned in. Culture and Code was a tour that the Authenticated took out probably for the last 3 or 4 years. We would descend into markets, into cities that we believe were undersold and their stories weren't told. So we hit Detroit, Miami, DC, Stockholm, and the idea was to unpack innovation and creativity and entrepreneurship in cities that we felt were underrepresented. And some in the beginning it was U.S. cities, and then we started to branch out. And then from that we sort of grew this this network called the Authenticated, and that's where we base camp now. It's where we live now. But yeah, one of the the next tour we were supposed to do included Colombia, included Saudi, included other markets that we just have been leaning into from an insights perspective. And South America is definitely a place that we are looking to grow and spend more time growing our base in. So exciting week to be living in LA. For those of you that are in LA, for those of you that follow sports, if you don't follow sports, both the LA Dodgers and the Lakers are champions. Weird year though, very strange year. For sports in general. Strange year for all of us. And then let's just talk about sports. We're doing some work right now with some NFL players and an NBA player. So I get a chance to really spend time with athletes, um, and I even have spent time with former athletes, who are all affected by this year's events. But I just don't know. I mean, the NBA is planning, and the players that'll be playing in the U.S. team, they're actually planning on being in Tokyo next year for the Olympics. So, a lot of energy going to basketball and to preparation for the Olympics, but it just all seems so weird. It just doesn't seem like we're going to have an Olympics next year. I don't know about you guys, but and so it's always weird when I'm engaged in these meetings, and it's weird because I mean, I'm sorry, like I am the most optimistic person on the planet, but I just don't see like anything getting back to normal until, I mean, maybe next summer, but I just don't know. So it's just really difficult for me to process, concerts. It's difficult for me to process, when I'm sitting and talking to artists about their careers, about touring. It's just difficult for me to really say that there's going to be touring. I don't think anybody has a read on that. But I am focused on next week in the election, and we're going to be holding space. We're going to be creating some. Who is Bobby? We're going to be creating some spaces to to make sure that our community can process. Can whoever wins the election, we believe firmly that this country is going to be in a state of disarray, and so for that, the Authenticate's coming together next week, and stay tuned if you follow us. If you want to know more, you can text me 415-843-8100. We're going to be creating space for folks in our community just to heal, just to because I just really think that we won't know the results of the election until mid-December, hopefully, and there will be a lot of heartache, I think, because I think that there's going to be a lot of disruption in this country. So we're actually, we're taking a break. We're actually taking a break. We were going to produce a culture and code this weekend, and I just felt like no one really wants to hear any more panels or content. So we're actually starting on Friday, just DJ sets on Friday, and then we're building out like a virtual world. Like you kind of operate as like an avatar. So on Saturday we're having like a kind of a Halloween party, if you would, and we'll do a few hours of letting people play around and become an avatar and cruise around this little world that we've built out. So really excited about what we're doing there. And so we just decided that we need to take a break. We need to take a break and just create space for anybody who wants to just chill, just have conversation. I think the internets need to be a space for positive energy, and so we're really directing positive energy. We have the murder and the shooting of Black men still happening in this country. We have heightened emotions right now, and we want to make the internet a place, at least the space that we occupy in the internet, a space of safety and a space of a space to heal. So that's what we're doing at the Authenticated next week. We'll have some some opportunities for folks who are not members yet of the Authenticated to come and experience some of the stuff we're doing. But yeah, just keep the internet positive. I think that's the best thing we can do, whether that's, any of the spaces you live in, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Like we need a positive energy source. So excited for Ana Andjelic, who's going to be joining us any minute to talk about her book. And she is wonderful. I have really enjoyed getting to know her. She is a voice and really a conciliary to brands, to CMOs, but she's really got an incredible read on like how brands can survive. Because think about, if you're a CMO right now, like most CMOs don't even understand how to even to even think about talking to consumers right now. There she is, perfect. So I feel like this woman has such a read on how you talk to, how we want to be spoken to, how CMOs should be thinking about their brand moving forward. And I'm just super excited that she's joined us. And I see her in the waiting room. She's dressed wonderful. I'm dressed in a Dodgers hat. She's looking amazing. I'm dressed in a Dodgers hat because LA is the place to be right now, as I've mentioned before. And shout out to the Dodgers who won the World Series. And welcome my guest, Ana. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I was just at the gym and, so I'm not looking my best. But you know what? I gave up on putting makeup on because we're all like, everyone is at home. So like what? But I did dress up, like, look, you know what I mean? Like
because you have Lululemon sweats underneath that? Is that what's going on?
No, I dressed up all the way. Look, that's a
yes.
And I'm even having like shoes. Like, wait, you can't see from here.
Let me see what you're wearing. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like respect. Nothing but respect for you, James. So all the way, yeah. But I just realized that once I forgot to put makeup, I was doing Cannes Lions last Monday, and I'm like, oh, I don't have makeup on. But honestly, it doesn't matter. Like no one can see that on camera because
nobody.
Yeah, let's just So thanks for the lovely introduction, and thank you for having me here. It's a really pleasure and an honor to have a conversation with you.
Honor to be friends with you.
Take the compliment.
Yes, I'm taking it. I receive it. Your background, I love your background and your journey. Maybe you could start by sharing a little bit about your journey and how you context around not just your career, but your perspective as a consumer is interesting too. So take us through a little bit of where you started and then how you ended up in this position of being one of my favorite voices.
Thank you, James. And I think that's a great question because I don't think if I asked you that same question, you would be like, wait a second, how do I want to connect the dots? What is the narrative that I want to say? And that narrative really changes. I wouldn't have said the same thing to you last year versus this year. And it really depends what we lean into. And from professional side, my drive was always innovation, and that may sound boring, but it's actually not, because it's innovation in almost like when the world is collapsing, how do you take that as an opportunity to create something new? And that's what I realized only when I was doing my PhD, first my master's, then my PhD. It was almost like, hey, how do societies embrace new innovation? How do technologies change? Because you have Nikola Tesla, who was by all accounts genius, who ended up alone in New York in a hotel talking to pigeons.
Yeah.
And you have Thomas, like he was Serbian,
Oh,
and my countryman.
yeah.
And then you have Thomas Edison, who was like way less talented, but at the same time, he managed to create the infrastructure for his innovations. And his innovations, he was more a business minded oriented. And Nikola Tesla was like, I'll forgive, like patents, who cares? So that is sort of. That is sort of a thing that when you look about what is that bigger picture, because science fiction writer Frederick Paul, he said the real innovation and real way to predict the future is not to invent a car, it's to predict the traffic jam. And I think that's more relevant than ever now, in a sense that we are not used to dealing with traffic jams like climate change, inequality, like, racial inequality, you name it.
Yeah.
And we don't think about it. We think almost what's the most efficient way to do it. Like, look at Facebook, for example. Look at the entire Silicon Valley. It's like, they're inventing new things. Like, well, have you thought through how is that going to impact communities?
Wow.
And so I think that one thing that maybe is now like that's sort of my background, which is like a sociologist, but also someone who is working in a professional capacity in leadership roles and CMO in brands, is to really consider those externalities of our actions. So that is for me, even in 2020, for me was like when all of this happened, I was like, okay, let's go. Some people react differently, and for me, the crisis was like let's see what's going on. Let's see how we can make things better, once this is over. So obviously I'm in a lucky position that no one is sick and so on. But that is kind of the narrative of my career. I mean, you have to have that. If you come from a place like Serbia, you gotta have that stuff. I mean, it's in your genes, like million wars, like typhus, and like you're kind of like, okay, how do you make the best out of it?
Yeah. Wow. I love the idea of the traffic jam in the car.
Right?
That's so good. So this year, I mean, what is 2020? Because we only met this year, but I feel like whenever I talk to you, I've known you for a long time, which is really, beautiful when that happens, when you get to know somebody. But tell me who Ana was, last year this time versus who you are now. And what you sort of discovered in that journey.
Honestly, like this one thing is that I've been myself since since forever. So I was the same. I was doing different things. So in one way, actually, is like I wrote a book in the meantime, but that was sort of planned. And I think that now I'm owning more of my own expertise and owning more of what I'm doing as a brand almost, because it was my focus is broader in a way. And I think the best example is that I actually started a newsletter in order to force myself to write a book in a very disciplined every week way, and I've done that for 2 months. And after that, I wanted to fold the newsletter. But then I had already a community, and it was a fantastic community, and I met so many amazing people. Thank you for reminding me. I need to add you to the list of people I met thanks to that newsletter, and thanks to that video series, Business of Aspiration, and thanks to writing that book. And for me, that connecting with people, I think I've been way more social than when I was last year at this time, because I think we were all very narrowly focused on our own lives, and all of a sudden we were just like looked around, and it was like, oh my god, there is a community of people like us, and they have fantastic stories, and it was unbelievably inspiring to interact with them. And the other thing I realized is that I've been helping them. First, at the worst time in March and April, they were thanking a lot. I got a lot of notes being like, thank you for showing up every Monday. Thank you for this analysis. Thank you, because that was some structure, and I called it a superpower, that you can actually focus and work when the world is falling apart.
Yeah. Wow. Yes. The world is falling apart, and your work has been consistent. I mean, it's thorough. I mean, it's it's so well written. Let's talk about now all the energy that you just put into which is your book, and the book debuted, I think, 3 weeks ago. I mean, how many weeks ago?
No, yesterday.
Yesterday. Oh, yesterday. I feel like I've known about it for a long time.
It was available for pre-order for a while. So you are absolutely correct. You could have pre-ordered, but it actually dropped yesterday.
Yesterday. Oh my God, what a moment. Oh my God, this is a celebration. I feel like I had an insider's peek. So, oh great. So we're on your Jimmy Fallon. This is your PR run. This is amazing.
What do you mean? This is my opera. What do you mean, Jimmy? Like, let's go bigger. This is like opera. There is no one bigger than opera.
No one bigger than Oprah.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Well, tell the world about your baby that you just gave birth to then. Yes.
Well, you know what? One thing, there's like the book writing is 2 parts. One is writing the book, and that's amazing. And then it's promoting the damn thing, And then the book arrived, and I'm like, why did they set it up like this? And, like you're always going to, and I'm like, you know what? Like, just shut up. Just take it. It's amazing. There are amazing things inside. The cover is amazing. People love it. Like, just like run with it,
Are you hypercritical?
What's that?
Are you a hypercritical person?
I'm trying not to be. You know what? I'm kind of like, and then I'm like over it. Like, I get over things quick. How about you? Are you hypercritical?
In something, I get over things. I'm not like, there are many people in my life who are way more detail focused. And, my wife actually she wrote a book. And she started a publishing company, and she literally, from the binding to the book to, literally the font and like literally the color and the Pantene and, like she literally has everything down to, I probably wouldn't go to that extent, but I appreciate people that do that. I worked with Kanye last year for like 6 months on a project, and I was really just, like I admire people that are like that, but I don't think I am that way. Kanye has an entire room of like buttons, and like he's obsessed with like buttons and like hues and like I think I see things, so I wouldn't call it critical. I see details, but I don't necessarily apply those same details in a lot of my work. I let things go a little bit. But yeah.
That's funny. But I was obsessive about my book cover, like that. But then, like like the font, I was, next time, this is not the only book, so next time.
Would you see yourself publishing? Because you went through a traditional publisher.
I did, because I wanted to have a wide distribution, and publishers still provide it. So it's a global footprint, and I'm really happy because the book is at independent bookstores a lot in downtown New York, in Park Slope, in Brooklyn Heights. Like, it's like you can find it everywhere, really. And I'm like, support the little guys, McNeely, Jackson has it, so that is what publisher really gives you. So in that sense, I did want to, and also to have like gives you, I mean, I don't have, like judgment about people who choose to self-publish, but I personally wanted to have Taylor and Francis and Routledge, and that means something. And, I knew what I was sort of going to get with that. So that's what I went with.
So the book drops yesterday, and so you're doing a ton of podcast interviews. Obviously, we're one of them. Talk to people about the book who don't know you, who don't know your work, who have not yet read your Substack blog, newsletter. What do we call these things these days? I don't even know what to call them. If you have not read her Substack, you definitely need to go read the Business Sociology. But tell us about the book and what's inside the book.
Yeah, so the book is basically about how changing values change business, and what it means in practice is what we as a consumers and what companies see as valuable. So what are they investing their money and time in? So if you talk about from a company standpoint, a company can a company can focus on, like, we're going to clean supply chain. We're going to work only with small farmers. So that is something that in terms of value changes how they're going to do business. And as a consumer, you're going to be like, I don't know what I want to spend my money on. Like, I may spend my money on meditation class, or like Air Jordans, or, like a book, or like, in that like modern aspirational economy, which is a term I came up with. It's how we sort of calculate what we are going to buy is really flat. So there is not anymore like, oh no, I need to have those things because that's going to signal something. It's more about, oh no, I have to be like a coffee connoisseur, and I have to have a specific taste, and I need to know like where to go and what to buy, which is not just kind of knowing, it's more like having taste. And taste is not like, when we had fan clubs and sort of communities, it's more like, oh, you buy a t-shirt and you're good.
Right.
No, here you really need to walk the walk. You need to put time and you need to put effort to develop your taste, and in such a way that modern aspirational economy really creates a new class divides. Those who have time versus those who don't have time, and those who have access and those who don't, So it's not more equal. It's just unequal in a different way. It's not about the money, because you can walk in Zara and have the most fashionable thing, but at the same time, if you're against fast fashion, you're never going to walk into Zara, So it's about that. And going back to how companies change their values, I think it's super important to talk about that right now. And that brands are actually super important. They have a super important role, because entire last century and the beginning of this century, brands were always like, just do it. And they were like, oh, if you buy this, you're going to come across as smarter. Or if you spend more money than your neighbor, you're going to be better, more beautiful, whatnot. So that script really gave us a giant inequality, gave us environmental crisis. It's like the scripts that brand put forward. They gave, like, we all have mental illness because we're all like so busy. We're like, oh, collect airline miles, be on the road all the time, And I'm saying that's wrong. That's not right. We can flip the script, and brands have a particular role because they're creating the cultural narratives that we aspire to. And they can say, hey, it's okay to take it easy. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be kinder. And that all creates the aspirational economy, really. How do you organize around that? And then the final thing, like, we as leaders, we need to be more compassionate and human and empathetic, and have organizations around those principles. Because see what's happening when, like, away, toxic culture, Everlane, like fired union workers, like, that doesn't fly anymore.
Yeah. Wow, I love this new classification of the modern aspirational segmentation, because it's so true. It's like the new taste has been redefined. It's not your dad's aspiration anymore. It's not.
Yeah.
And I love that when you talk about that, though I have not read the book yet, but
I'll send you a copy.
Oh, please.
I'll set you up.
You set me up? Good. I do love that. And I wonder how much of that, so I'm curious, because how much of the book was written during the pandemic versus pre-pandemic, and how has the pandemic, how did it change maybe the direction? Because you probably secured the book deal in 2019. Yeah?
In January of 2020.
2020.
In January,
Okay.
I had 6 publishers that were interested, and I chose one. So that was in January. And then I started writing in February. So February, March, I wrote it in 2 months. April 1st was done. But then I was like, look, I really need to go back. And I added the concluding chapter. And I added the preface. And then I added examples throughout. They had to reflect what was happening, because it was right at the worst time in New York. So of course I have adjusted it. At the same time, I didn't want to just focus on what is happening at that moment, because but I think it was really important to end on the note that modern aspiration is now moving towards more generous, sustainable, kind world, which I truly believe both on individual level and on the level of organization. So I added that thanks to the pandemic.
Yeah, thank you, pandemic. I feel like I Marie Kondoed my closet in the beginning of the pandemic, and I'll be honest, I haven't bought a stitch of clothing, I don't think, or not too much. I also, unlike, I'm not moving around. Like, I don't pass the 405 freeway here in Los Angeles, so I haven't even thought about fashion in the same way. I don't have. I also just feel like there was a reset, for all of us. For myself, there was just a reset in having too much stuff, and I really had a chance, I think, during this pandemic to think about like what I want to spend my money on as a consumer, and where I think that the priorities should be for us, even when we do move around, even as it relates to travel or play, or when I am able to travel, what that looks like, and I just think that I haven't thought about buying a car during this thing, but I was like, I don't even know, like, I don't even drive. I go nowhere. I literally go nowhere. But it also just made me think a lot about waste, and it made me think a lot about just how much stuff is just excess. But I also do appreciate the taste I've cultivated, the knowledge I've gained, the networks and communities that I've been able to carry. And I love when you talk about the fact that, you look at it, it is a lens of privilege, right? That I'm able to have access to the information that I get, and to the people that I know, and to the communities that I build, and the privilege is around the time to be able to do that. And I do have a great appreciation for that ability to be, an expert in certain things. What do you see? Because obviously, and I've been thinking a lot about this. The role of information and technology in communities. I've been doing, my fair share in the authenticated of really building a hyper-connected network, which I believe is the future. I'm sort of mildly obsessed with this idea of like social media is sort of being debundled right now, and then we're going into what I'm calling hyper-connected communities. You and I met on one of those, which is Clubhouse. But what are your thoughts around consumers and then communities, and the use of technology, and how people will organize themselves in these sort of hyper-connected networks? I'm just curious to get your thoughts since I have you.
I am thinking about that, and I have been thinking about that, which is also in the book, how the way we are socializing is going to micro, and how we are socializing through niches. You can have taste communities that are very specific, like you're maybe vintage bourbon connoisseur, and you connect with like-minded others. But then also overall, we've seen a spike in those more private networks.
Yes.
Which is, I think there is Cocoon, and there is Kindred, and there are a lot of those that allow you to stay in touch with friends and family.
Yeah.
And then you see like influencers are using like close friends features. So there is a way to sort of like narrow down your social footprint. And I think that's really, and I mean, that's not new. We know that when you go to Japan, you have those listening bars, and they're like 5 seats in, or you have invite only like clubs. So there was always like that sort of micro present in society. But versus before, in society, it was always exclusivity that was driving that, and now it's more belonging.
Right.
You really find your family in a way, or like sport, like what you connect with. And I think that happened because when you look like what's happening in social media, none of it is real. And we all sort of realize that none of it is real. I mean, influencers now are buying empty shopping bags like Dior, Louis Vuitton, Gucci. There is nothing in, but they're just kind of like want to present, oh, like we went shopping. You can literally buy empty shopping bags. And if I had a pile here, it would be like, oh, So you know what I mean? And like it started with Instagram filters and with all crazy stuff, And so like when you go online and none of this is real, you're like, well, I still have one human connection, Like
Yeah.
remember how Facebook was when it was like just for universities, and it was unbelievably fun because you would poke someone, and like we are talking, and now it's like jihadists and like right wing and like white supremacists. I mean, I haven't been on Facebook in like who knows how long, And then also like I use Twitter for Instagram for broadcasting.
Right.
I have zero intention to reveal anything in my private life there. So I think it's a lot about privacy as well.
Yeah, no, I love that idea of it's no longer exclusivity, it's about belonging.
Yeah.
I am, I've been in all the communities, right? I've early summit series, Brilliant Minds in Stockholm, and I'm even on the membership committee. Oops, I shouldn't say that. Well, I have a relationship with Soho House. Sorry, don't no one send me any message. And while I love all of those spaces and places, I think the word community is overused. I think people really talk about community, but they use it in ways that really don't have the meaning behind it. And I love this idea of belonging that you talk about, because that's what is missing. Is a place where I feel safe, where I feel like trust is not only has it always been important, but I think it's even becoming more important. The ability to trust, it'll become important in public health, whether or not you can trust a location. It'll become important for digital health, whether or not I feel like I'm safe in that space to have conversation. So I do love what you're talking about, because it's a lot of what I've been thinking about in building micro niche community. Like I think we trade in trust. We trade in creating a safe space for people. And I guess the filter is me in my current network. So I am the curator. You trust that if I've curated somebody that they're probably a decent person, that they might be someone you want to talk to. I'm sort of the DJ of my own community.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And I think that's really important. I think it'll become even more important as you talk about these niche communities, is this sense of belonging and trust. And that's great. What's next for you? I'm sorry, you were going to say something. I feel like you're about to say something.
I was going to say, because I'm glad you brought the DJ model, because that's almost like that's really curation, because as we belong to all those different niches, we need curators who are going to connect all those niches. And our worlds are maybe getting smaller and smaller, although we are more globalized. But in terms of like true taste and interest, you have like mass, which is global, and then we have very local like stuff that we are into. So you need people like you to kind of connect, to say, hey, you guys should know each other, and you should know about this community, and so on. And that is how really culture moves forward, through those remixes and cross-pollination of different communities. So I think that people who belong to so many different communities are unbelievably valuable. So what is next for me is
wait, I want to tap on that real quick before you go.
Yes, okay.
Because you just opened up something. I am really obsessed with hyperlocal, to the extent that like I really think I'm living in Stockholm right now. I think I'm living in Joburg. Like I'm connected to Paris now. I'm connected to Detroit, even though I haven't been to Detroit in a number of months. I feel like when you live in these hyper-connected networks, like I can tell you what people are doing in, like we just did an event in Uruguay last week with we did a virtual dinner with folks from Argentina and Sao Paulo, and this woman that we work with bought some land in Uruguay. And even though I've never even been to Uruguay, in the last 2 months I can tell you everything about Uruguay. Have you been to Uruguay, by the way? Is it a place
No, unfortunately, I have not.
Oh, and their commitment to sustainability is amazing. They're just a really progressive country.
That's great.
There's someone I want you to meet. Her name is Heidi Lender. She's in our network. And she has bought this land to create an artist colony next to the chef, Francis Malman, who has the restaurant in Campo. And the place is a destination for people who are foodies. And the town's only 100 people, 150 people.
What's the name of the place again?
It's called Garzon. And Francis Malman is an Argentinian chef. And so she built land right next to his.
Right. Let me write it down.
Yeah, please do. And so anyway, so I'm obsessed with this idea of hyper local, and I think
that's great. Artist column, fantastic. Yeah.
It's good. Campo Garzon. So we did a dinner last week with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell me what's next for you as we wrap up. Where can people find you? What do you see yourself doing? You sounds like you started a newsletter because you were sort of in spirit of the book, getting into a discipline, and it has now become a family and a tribe and your own niche. So where do you take your niche? Where do you take your tribe? And what's next for you as you serve people?
It's a global platform, James. Niche, like.
It's a global platform.
It's like, yeah, I mean, that was great because it is really global. It is really global. I get messages from all over, the world, and I'm really glad because the purpose of that newsletter is to really help people articulate what they've been thinking about, but they're not able to articulate, and then also to give them tools to then use it strategically to address those changes that they had hard time at articulating. So that is sort of the overall purpose. And now for me, next is just working with companies and then helping them implement everything I've been writing about, everything I've been thinking about, and just, making it happen, turning it into reality and into real world case studies, and just moving the knowledge in the business aspect in that sense.
So your strategy business, maybe you talk a little bit about that and the work that you do with brands.
The work I do with brands came from writing the book, but on the practical side, because my book is a combination, as I said, of articulating the changes through lens of business, of sociology of business, if you'd like. By the way, Sociology of Business is the title of my newsletter. You can find it on Substack, just Google it. And then making very practical solutions that come from my professional background, which means like direction 1, strategy 2, strategy 3. This is what you're going to get. This is why is that useful? And the practice that I'm running revolves around 5 different business models for modern brands. And how to ensure strategic growth, how to ensure that your company is not treated just as an asset, but becomes a brand, how to build brand identity, and what does that really mean in how your internal organization operates and how you communicate externally, how to expand your addressable market, and actually how just to set your growth path in the simplest possible way.
Well, I'm so lucky that we had time with you because I know that this book has hit the market and you're going to be very busy. Your phone is going to be ringing off the hook. So we are very excited that we got to spend time with you. I have more things I want to tell you offline and share with you offline. And just thank you for being a valuable member of The Authenticated. And I appreciate your vision and your spirit and your look into the future. And here to serve whatever you need.
Likewise, James, here for you. Thanks a lot for having me and for your kind words.
Yes, thank you. Take care.